Looks good here. I could start. Okay. You press start. Shekayach Gadol. I want to thank Reb Shmuel Silver, our IT technology guy, who's here today, gracing us with his presence. Nechemi says what CNN does with 300 staff, we do with one man. Huh? And he says it's and the message is even better than CNN. Let's hope, right? No, we know that, I mean. Yeah, okay. Yeshakayach Reb Shmuel. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Good morning, everybody. Okay, we began on Thursday. The first shiur was the Maimer Torah Parshas Vayetze, the first Maimer, Vshavti b'Shalom al Beis Avi. And we're holding close to the second paragraph, close to the end of the first paragraph, Vshavti b'Shalom al Beis Avi. Today's class is graciously dedicated by our dear friend, who for many years was one of the pillars of this class, Reb Shlomo Kaller, in honor of his beloved wife, Blimi's birthday on Yud Beis Kislev, the 12th day of Kislev. Happy birthday, and Ashnas Hatzlacha, La'arichis Yamim V'Shanim Tovos, many long, happy, healthy, prosperous, tranquil, and serene years with abundance. And thank you very, very much, Reb Shlomo, and Mazel Tov. Ashnas Hatzlacha. So, to summarize at least one of the main points, the Alter Rebbe wanted to this Maimer. The Alter Rebbe asks a bunch of questions, and one of the main focus of the questions is why the stones become such a major factor in the whole story. When Yaakov Avinu goes to sleep on the way to Haran, he takes stones and he puts them by his head. When he wakes up, the stones suddenly become one stone. The stones become one stone, and he takes one stone, and then he takes that stone and he turns it into a matzeva. He builds it up into a monument, and he pours oil on it. And then later he makes a promise that if Hashem is with him and gives him everything he needs and protects him and brings him back to the home of his father, and Havaya Hashem Lila Elikim, what's the crescendo? What's he going to give in return? What's going to happen? The stone that became a matzeva is going to be a Beis Elikim. Everything is about the stone. So the Alter Rebbe started to explain the idea. And to put it in maybe more in simple words, it's basically that there's two perceptions of the universe. That's what it really boils down to. One is many stones, and one is one stone. When Chazal say that when Yaakov went to sleep, he gathered all these stones, and they started to fight, and everybody says, I want the head. And everybody is quarreling with the other one because I don't want the legs, I don't want the thighs, I don't want the torso, I don't want to be near your chest, I want your head, I want the head, and everybody's fighting. Allah yaniach tzadikas Rashi brings it. And then what does Hashem do? He turns all the stones into one. There's a merging of the stones. So it looks like just, it's a cute story. Why did it happen now? What's the whole point? But really, it represents something much deeper. Because you can ask a question, how does it help if all the stones become one? Your head is still only on one part of the stone, right? If you're lying on a mattress, the mattress is one mattress, but your legs are one part of the mattress, your head is another part. So they should still fight. Even if we're one stone, but who's getting the head? The head can't be on every part of the stone. You took 12 stones and you made one big stone, Yeshakayach. So you have one blanket, you have one mattress, but the head is still only the head didn't become the feet. It's a good question, no? What's the answer? The answer is because when you're one, you don't mind if the other one has the head. Because you're one. They stopped fighting, not because everybody gets the head, because I don't mind if you get the head. Or if you want to put it in other words, you getting the head is also me getting the head because we're one. And that changes everything. You see it in a relationship. Who gets the head? I get this. You did this, but I did this, but you did this, I did this. And you could go your whole life like that in different relationships. And people do it. And it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing not because they're not right, because they're stuck in a perception of it's called zero-sum game. Zero-sum game means what you have, I don't have. And what I have, you don't have. And therefore we're fighting over limited resources. And life has limited resources. And the question is, who's going to get it? So today I got it, tomorrow you get it, then the next day I want to get it. But I'm smarter, so I want to get it more often, but I want to get it in a way that you don't realize that I got it. And I could live in that space. And it makes sense because that's the space of different stones competing over the same head. Anybody relates to this? Right, but if I don't know of anything else, this is the way to live because it's me or you. And even if we're together, so I have to compromise. Okay, so today I have that, tomorrow you have the head. From 1 to 2, it's me. From 2 to 3 is you. But that's a torturous perception. That's the perception what he calls Olam HaPirud, the world of fragmentation. What Yaakov's entire perspective, his entire agenda, his entire Indian was Vayetze Yaakov meBe'er Shava, Vayelech Harana, to be able to introduce a different consciousness. And the Alter Rebbe explains that Avonim, the word here is stones, because stones in Sefer Yetzirah, in Kabbalah, stones are called oisios. Oisios are called stones, letters. And the whole world is made up of letters. And because, somebody made me the cheshbon, it says in Sefer Yetzirah that 2 stones build 2 homes, 3 stones build 4 homes, 6 homes, 4 stones build 24 homes, and 5 stones build 120 homes, and 6 stones build, I believe, 760 homes, which means that when you have a word that's made up of 2 letters, when you have 2 letters, you can make 2 words out of it, which means 2 homes, so to speak, because a word is like a home. A word is a vessel through which an idea can be conveyed. And then, of course, so that would be like one part of the home. And then a few words together, which is like a few bedrooms, becomes a sentence. And a few sentences together becomes a paragraph, and that becomes a chapter, and a few chapters together become a book. And in the book, you're like, convey something. Something lives through the book. So it's like a home. It's a structure through which something can be happening. If I just write gibberish, it's not a home. It's like taking a bunch of rocks and putting them together. It's not a home. You need a structure. And then you could live there. There's a space for you to sit, there's a place for you to sleep, there's a place for you to eat. That's a dira. So oisios in Kabbalah are essentially the merchandise, the building blocks through which any emotion I'm now trying to convey an idea. Words, letters have to be put together in a certain sequence. And it's always about the sequence. It's always about the sequence because you can have the same letter to make up a sentence of trash or meaningless or stupidity. And the same sentence could be pure eloquence, like wow. Sometimes you read a sentence, wow, that's a way of saying it. You nailed it. What a home. What a home. But you basically took letters and you put them together. So shtei avonim beinas shtei batim. Somebody sent me, I guess, they checked it out mathematically. It's pretty interesting. No, after the shir, somebody sent me, it was very interesting. About how the stones work. Just want to find it here. How far it goes, because at some point you stop counting. Okay, I found it. So from 2 letters you make 2 words, like av and boy, right? From 3 letters you make 6 words, 4 letters 24 words, 5 letters 120 words, like Elohim, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem, you can make 120 words, 6 letters 720 words, 7 letters 5,040 words, 8 letters 40,320 words, 9 letters 362,880 words, 10 letters 3,628,800. 11 letters is already 39,316,800. 12 letters is 479 million plus. And after that, the Sefer Yetzirah says another few you'll stop counting. In other words, it becomes so astronomically gigantic. So now the question is, this person writes to me, so I want to ask you a question. He said, now, if you take all the 22 letters of Aleph base, which Sefer Yetzirah says to do, because those are the letters through which Hashem created the world, and you make every possible combination of them, okay? How long would it take you to read every possible combination of the 22 letters? So if you have all the 22 letters and you take every possible combination of every single one from all the 22 letters, every single possible combination, which we heard there's many, many combinations, how long would it take me simply to read, or in other words, to visit these homes, to visit each of these words? How long would it take me? So he says, if you give around 3 seconds per word, it's going to take you 100 trillion years to read it all. If you give 1 second per word, it's going to take you 35, almost 36 trillion years. 36 trillion years. Only. That's it. But if you give a little more, if you give 3 or 4 seconds, it's more than 100 trillion years to read it all, according to AI. I didn't do it. And you can't stop for a coffee. No. No. If you stop for a coffee, you ruin it all. And the Rebbe says you have to understand this because every tziruf is another creation. The diversity of creation, physically, spiritually, in every single word is all different combinations of letters. The same letters, but it's different combinations. Mayim Yud Mem is water, and Aleph Shin is Eish. And that becomes the divine energy, which morphs into the spiritual and physical energy of that creation, which is called chemistry. The chemistry of everything on a physical level, and then deeper on a spiritual, metaphysical level, on a divine level, this is called Hishtalshalus. And it's all Isis. And we call it Avonim. Why such a strange name for Avonim? Stones. Because that's the paradox here. On one hand, it's the structure of the home that allows a person to live there. You look at a home and you say, wow, this is a place where I want to go into. A bedroom, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, another room, whatever it is, a foyer, you sit, this is a place, it's a dira that's megala the adam. It brings you out. This is your home. On the other hand, nobody's going to say that the even, the brick or the stone or the piece of wood that was used is actually comparable to the energy of the person. It's a daimim, it's lifeless. You see rocks everywhere, you see bricks everywhere, you don't say that's my home. So on one hand, there's such a disparity between the person and the home. On the other hand, the home, when it's used right, becomes a place where you live. This is my home. To the point that it becomes like synonymous, like this is your home. The Gemara says, Kol mi shein lo bayis eino adam. Right? Homelessness demoralizes a person at their core. Everybody needs a space. Sometimes there'll be huge fights between homeless people in the subway because this is my spot. It's a subway spot. Take another spot. No, this is my house. This is my Daled Amos. I'll kill you. Because without a home, you need a space. I don't know if anybody here felt what it means to be homeless, like really homeless. Homeless doesn't mean, that you don't want to come home for a couple of hours. It's something very real. Huh? Yeah. You see, it destroys. A kid feels he doesn't have a home. Yeah. If home is not safe, safety, you have to have a safe home emotionally and physically is like, it's essential. The Gemara says in Yavamas, Kol mi shein lo bayis eino adam. It's not an adam. The Torah Gemara Tosfos over there. Dacht sich Samach Gimel, ergens dort. Emes? Yeah. Kol mi shalei shari b'loi bayis, b'loi bracha. Samach Dalet kann sein. Somewhere in that zip code. Very good. Mem, Yud Mem, it's the Miyam. Mayim is Miyam, from the Yam. Yud Mem is Yam, yeah. So the letters Yud Mem have in them an energy, right, that channel the divine Isis that create the sea. Just like Eish has the energy that creates the fire, or Chamar the donkey, or Gamal the camel, or Aryeh the lion, or Doiv the bear. And that's why the names of Adam are so significant. Because when Adam names everything, he's not just giving random names. A table, a chair, a salon, a tree. The name is actually the oisius with which it was created. And therefore it continues to be created. And from the name you can identify the shayrish, the energy of it. And those are the oisius. So when you look at the world, you can look at it in two ways. That's the paradox of Avonim. On one hand, it's a home. The Avonim are all channeling Ein Sof. So everything is infinity. And also everything is really one. Because it's the same source, it's the author. It's like when you read a book, the first chapter is not in a fight with the last chapter. It's the same author. The last chapter always wins. One sentence doesn't get into a fight with the other sentence. I want to have these letters. You're all conveying a story. It's a cohesive story. But when we look at the world, we don't see that. We see ego. Because it's two perceptions. One perception is when you see the ice divorced from the idea that it's conveying, it's just a daimim. It's like a brick, it's lifeless. You don't see the Ein Sof in it. That's why it's called Avonim, that's why it's called stones. The Evan, Regali, the person who's living in the Dira, it's Be'ein Arech. This is a Medaber, this is a daimim. And yet, in the physical world, we know that the home is where you express yourself, you live there. And the home does something for you as much as you do something for the home. So there's two perceptions of the world. One perception of the world is where the letters are just fragmented. In other words, I don't see them as divine letters channeling a cohesive story. Everything is on their own. So I fight for my turf, you fight for your turf. So what does that look like in relationships? It's always a zero-sum game, always. And even if there's compromise, but even if there's peace, the peace is about compromise. It's about, okay, yeah, I got this, but then it's always like quid pro quo. It's very transactional. But essentially at the heart of it is, I need to protect myself, you need to protect yourself. In other words, I go into an ego space or an insecurity space. And what Yaakov was trying to accomplish was a different paradigm in existence. Vayikach me avnei hamokan. Avnei hamokan represents the diversity of the oisius that constitutes the whole universe. And bring it back to Mirashoisav, to the cosmic intelligence, Chachma Elah, which is like the author that's channeling a story through all the oisius, and therefore really they're one, even though each one manifests the story in a different way. Because you can't create a story from one letter. If you just have a billion times, that's not a story. You need combinations of different letters, and not just 22 different letters, but each one needs so many diverse combinations, trillions and trillions and zillions and zillions and zillions, and it's mamish what matter looks like. All matter is made up of the same material, of atoms. So what makes the difference between matter, one entity and another entity, if they're all made up of the same chaymer, of the same material? Ultimately, atoms are the building blocks of all matter. It's the same building, it's the same Lego game. It's the same pieces of Lego. The answer is combination. The way things are combined, literally tzirufim. You have 22 letters, it's a very limited amount, but the tzirufim makes up endless diversity to the point that you don't recognize one from the other, and what's their connection? That's the external perception. Once you go deeper and you see the actual building blocks, and the building blocks are each one conveying their homes to convey the Ein Sof, so it's really one. So that's why when Yaakov looks at the stones, they merge into oneness, because his observation of it redefines reality. And now you stop fighting who gets the head, because you having the head is me having the head. It's a different way of living. So there's a very deep peacefulness over there. It's a very deep safety. It's not such an easy avodah, because naturally I want to protect my turf, you want to protect your turf, and this is where all divisiveness comes from. Every machlokes in the world, every fight in the world, every argument in the world, whether it becomes violent or it stays verbal. Whether it's an argument internal or an argument external, whether it's a big argument that involves countries and civilizations and tribes and nations, or it's a little argument in your home or in your family or even in yourself. What is it? It's from an understanding, a lack of understanding of the truth of the Avonim. It's the external perception of the stones rather than the internal perception. And we live in that world where that's naturally the intuitive way to go. And that's the whole chiddush of the story. That was the main nekuda. Your typhus. This truth is written in stone. Very well. Very well said. And that's why it says, Vayasim mirashoisav, he brought it all back to Chachmei law. So really, what does that mean in a very real way? It means that in everything in life, you look for the Nekudas HaAchdus. There's a deeper oneness here. And it's really a training. It's a training. Everything in the world. It's part of oneness. Because everything is ultimately carved out of infinity. So everything has infinity. But the way infinity, so why don't I see infinity? Somebody once wrote, if all the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as is, infinite. Because everything is carved out of infinity, so everything is infinite. And that's why the deeper you go into any physical structure, what's called modern physics, the more you find infinity, the more you find something that's higher than rationality. Because essentially everything is carved out of infinity. But because it went through oisius, and every ois is contained, and it has a shape, and it has a feature, and it has a number, and it has a character, so it literally gets mitzumtzum, it gets filtered and restricted through the letter, so it could manifest the part of the story that it has to manifest. The squirrel tells its story, and every squirrel tells a different story. Hashamayim isaprim kvoit keil, u'maise yadav magad arakia, yoim liyoim yabiyah, oim v'layla, every creature, marabah masach Hashem, just literally like every letter in the book, and every word, and every chapter, and a good writer knows, you don't ignore any words. Every word means something. You don't add and you don't distract. If you're saying an extra word, get it out. I once saw a speech from Rabbi Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel. He was telling people how to give speeches. So he said, most people take the first page of your speech and throw it in the garbage. What's the beginning of most speeches? Good morning, everybody. I'm not sure why they invited me to speak, right? And I'm thinking I'm also not sure. That was a joke. But since they already asked me, so let me talk about, so my name is, we know your name. It says it on every card. And we know where you were born. And then there's the introduction, and the introduction, he's throw it out. Get straight to the second page. Last night, 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a call. Okay, now I want to hear. But loipachas v'loyos is very important. Why? Because every word, it's saying something. And if it's not saying something, scratch it, delete it. Like somebody once said, when you give a speech, you have to know 3 things. Stand up, tell them what you want to tell them. Tell them what you told them, and sit down. If there's anything more or less, scratch it. Tell them what you want to tell them, then tell them what you told them, sit down. And as an MC once said, this speaker doesn't need an introduction, he needs an ending. But every word is significant, it's meaningful, it's oisius. And that's the avonim. It's a stone. You don't use a stone. A good contractor knows every brick needs to be evaluated for and accountable for. And if it's not accountable for, why is it here? And the same is true with everything in the universe. When the Baal Shem Tov says that everything is b'hashgacha, and that even a leaf that falls off a tree and goes and rolls and ends up here, it's part of the divine providence, he wasn't only saying that it's not a mistake. He was saying that it's essential. This says, the Baal Shem said, it's essential to machshava hakduma d'adam kadman. Vayosim mirashoisav. It's essential to the cosmic intelligence. In other words, there's a point where this little detail is fulfilling an indispensable, meaningful purpose that is essential to the entire cosmos. Now you say that doesn't make sense. This is a little worm. Nothing is going to happen if this worm disappears. But that itself is coming from a very superficial perspective. That itself. That question itself, it's a normal question, but itself it's coming from a superficial perspective. So when Vayasim Rashoisav, he brings it all back to the Yud. The Yud, he said, is the letter that contains Chachma, because Yud is the smallest letter, which is a Nakuda, which represents Bittul. It's the letter in which you condense yourself to a point of almost complete surrender, and that allows you to channel something beyond yourself, and that's the cosmic intelligence and love, which is called Chachmei Elah, which is the author of all the Isis, like the author of the book. And over there, all the Avonim live in a unified consciousness, not by diluting themselves and obliterating their differences. That's not how you have a book. If you start obliterating the difference between Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dal, you don't have any message. It's by recognizing that the configuration and all of them is rooted in Achdus and oneness. And that's the story here of Yaakov Avinu. So it's a much deeper, it's not a superficial story. The stones fighting is essentially representing how consciousness works. And the stones making peace as a result of Yaakov's presence is essentially how consciousness works. As I said last time, our observation of reality affects reality. So sometimes a person walks into a conversation and their very presence already changes the tide of the conversation. Why? Because they just give a regulated presence. They bring in a new reality, not getting stuck in the what the Tanya calls mishcha dechivya, the snake skins. The snake skins. You don't allow yourself to get stuck there. I'm not going to be going down this rabbit hole, that rabbit hole, that rabbit hole. You remain in a certain state, and you inspire in a certain state of consciousness. You inspire it around you. Sometimes people are not ready, and that's sometimes sad. They're not ready for it. They just, they think you're part of the enemy, so they have to fight you also. The Olam versteht dem Inyan. This is the key for all shalom bayis. This is the key for relationships with other people, with yourself. This is it. This is Vayikach Ma'avnei HaMakom. When was Yaakov doing this? On the way to get married. He knew it's not going to be simple over there. Mit HaRachel, mit HaLeah, mit HaBila, mit HaZilpah. Mit HaShver Lavan. It's not going to be simple. If you don't live in this space, you're done. You're finished. You become part of the problem. And it's a normal thing. In fact, it says in Medrash Rabbah, this actually doesn't bring this, that it was 12 stones. And the fights of the stones were really the fights of the Yud Beis Shvatim. And Yaakov said, if these stones are not going to become one, there's no purpose for me to get married. I'm not going to be able to get married. So now we're toifus with this maimah, we're toifus the oimik of it. Every stone represented another shevet. In other words, represented a different stream of divine consciousness. And we see how hard it is for Jews to get along. 4,000 years, 3,600 years after the story, it's still hard for Jews. Why is it hard? Because it's something so essential, so difficult. It's a challenging task. And that's what Yaakov had to confront before he got married. And ultimately, until the stones did not become one in his own life, there would be no hope for this family, because the fragmentation would not have a solution. Yaakov saw a vision that even though the stones are going to fight and they're not going to get along, and at some point Yosef will be thrown into a pit and sold into slavery, at the end of the story is that the stones could become one. Let's hope that we will be able to achieve that in our times with our consciousness. But you have to realize how hard it is. This is the first thing that Yaakov confronts. And that's why you see, till today, it's a fascinating thing. Jews don't have so much on this side of homicide in our communities. Jews who grew up with Judaism, and even who didn't, more secular, you see that internal murder is very, very rare in the Jewish community. There was a woman who called me, she wants to take her kids out of Jewish school, she hates all the education and this. So I told her, I said, listen, I'm not going to be the one to defend all the educational systems and all the schools. But the one thing is, you should realize that I don't think there's a public school today in the United States of America that doesn't have a metal detector when you walk in. Even for 4th graders and 5th graders and 6th graders and 8th graders. But any Jewish school, you can go from Satmar school in Kiryas Yoel to your most modern Jewish school on the other extreme, they both don't have a metal detector. So that says something. They're not worried about that. They're worried about other things. You see, that's not the bigness. There's a respect for life that's embedded into the Jewish DNA very, very deeply, beyond what people imagine. You see other cultures, you see the world, you begin to appreciate it. But when it comes to Jews getting along, it's here, no. Here, murder they won't do, but everything else, till then. And sometimes in the most religious places where loy sirtzach is whoever heard of such a thing, murdering somebody? But when it comes to this element, the fighting, you see on the contrary, if I'm more religious, sometimes I have to fight you much more. I have to hate you much more. So this is what Yaakov is confronting. It's a very genuine thing that he's confronting. It's not a simple thing. And that is also very deeply embedded. And you see how deeply it's embedded already from the first generations. Cain killed Hevel, but they weren't Jewish yet. Once they become Jewish, so Yosef is almost killed. At the end, he's not killed, but everything else, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, bashed, etc. And then you see with Moshe Rabbeinu, right? The Egyptian he kills. The next day he sees 2 Jews fighting. They don't kill each other. But lama sakareach. So this is something that is a very, very big, deep challenge. Why is it important to know that it's a deep challenge? Because if it's a deep challenge, it means everybody could fall into it. And not fall into it necessarily willingly, premeditated because I'm a bad person. No, it's camouflaged as religion, as holy. Churya. I mean, it doesn't say clearly, but that's what Chazal say, that they killed Churya. Listen, there's if you go to the Tanakh, there was civil war and there's murder. I'm not saying there was no. But relatively speaking, when you look at Jewish history, it's not our thing. Huh? Real estate. Real estate, kugel, whatever you want. But this is a very big nisayon. It's a very big challenge. So that's the whole idea that he's saying here, what he does with the Avnei HaMakom, and they become one Evan.
How much is this, the Yasna sort of line up with, like, Melech Shach Orech? Now, is this a matter of midas and feelings, and everybody's fighting and things, but then the bottom line is follow, like, is it the Reish, like the unity, or is it the Melech, like the thinking over?
So over here he calls it Chachmei La, the Yud is Chachmei La, which means the cosmic intelligence from which everything is authored. It's like you have a book, but it's one author and it's his mind. So that's the Yud. The Yud represents the Ois, that it's a Keli for Chachma, the Hey is Bina. So it's really bringing everything back to Chachmei La, that there's an intelligence, a mysterious intelligence that is beyond us, obviously. Because I'm just, one little manifestation, so we're not always going to see the whole picture. But it's a certain surrender and recognition that there is a larger intelligence that's playing itself out.
Subjugating the feel. It's almost just identifying.
I wouldn't call subjugating, I would say uniting it, integrating it. It's not subjugating. When you take, no brick in the house has to be subjugated. It just has to become part of a singular story. No letter in the book needs to be obliterated. It just has to realize you're part of a word, you're part of a sentence, you're part of a paragraph, you're part of a chapter, you're part of a book. You're part of many books, right? That's what it is. And it's hard. In a book, it's easy. It's not hard for one letter. But in consciousness, it's hard. Consciousness, it's hard, right? One of the stupidest thing a person could say is, I'm only focusing on one cell in my body. You're not one cell. You're 60 trillion cells. Focus on each cell, but as part of 60 trillion cells. The heart says, I don't care about the brain. The brain says, I don't care about the heart. It doesn't work that way. But the moment we realize, one second, when I say I'm only focusing on me, it's literally like saying I'm focusing on one cell in my body. Because relative to the universe, it's one cohesiveness. So I'm one cell, you're another cell. My cell is made up of 60 trillion cells. It's the same lack of awareness. I'm just busy with me, I don't care about you. Do whatever happens to you. Kol Yisrael Arevim, the Baal Shem said, Arevim is mixed, it's integrated. It's not just you're responsible out of guilt. Arevim, the Gemara says, Kol Yisrael Arevim. So the Baal Shem says, Arevim means three things. Guarantee, that's the literally, we're guarantors. But then the Baal Shem says, Pnimi Yisatayra, why am I a guarantee for you? Because Arevim comes to the word Taruvus. Because we're integrated, we're mixed. And therefore Arevim from the word V'harevna. Every Jew is sweet. Zisfaranandayit. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zebaza. It's sweet. It's sweet for me when my leg is doing well. It's sweet for me when my chest is doing well. The brain is happy when the pinky is feeling good. Brain is not sad. So when we realize essentially my perception of myself, I'm just focusing on one cell. You don't do that. But the whole universe is Olam Katan Zeha Adam. The Gemara, the Chazal say that the person is an Olam Katan and the universe is a Guf Gadol. It's really one large body. And the truth is, we can even see it, okay? The oxygen, nobody lives without oxygen. If you don't have oxygen for a few seconds, we know the results, chas v'shalom. The oxygen that I just took into me, which was me, I own it. Where was it a few seconds ago? In your brain. It was literally in your brain. So that's really what's happening. I just absorbed the oxygen that was in your brain, and a few seconds later, Rabbi Isaac is going to be taking the oxygen. So where exactly do you begin and I end? Where? On one level, it's very comfortable to say, I end here and you begin here, and that's it. But that's a very limited perception. There's no such a thing. Mamish. And it was inside of you. And then you released it. Thank God, thank you for releasing it. And it goes into me. So if you look at a deeper level, really you're talking about oneness. Now, of course, there's oneness in yourself, there's oneness in your family, there's oneness in communities, oneness of a nation, but it's really the oneness of the planet. And the ecosystem knows this. The sun and the moon never make this mistake. The winds never make the mistake. The clouds, if they make all this mistake, everything shuts down. The ecosystem is perfectly designed. Everyone is giving and taking. They all know it. Every worm knows this instinctively. We're the ones who don't know it.
Medicine, it's already proven that it's exactly like this. So if the cells are not cohesive, so if the cell decides that it supplies its own, that's the definition of cancer cell.
Yeah.
If because eventually
Beautiful.
it's going
Yeah.
to kill the entire body.
Yeah. When a cell decides, I'm independent, I don't need anybody, I'm disconnected, there's a name for it. It's cancer. Rachmana litzlan. Lo aleinu v'lo aleichem. But the same is true with the universe. It's just with the universe we can get away with it. I can go into my own hole and fight the world and survive. But it's only an external way of survival. So it's a very real truth. Now, it's not here to make you crazy. It's enough taking care of my life, now I'm taking care of everybody else's life. It's just the idea of consciousness, of I have to take care of my life because that's what I could do. I can't control other people. But it's about placing yourself, knowing where you are in the picture. So it's the word, I don't think the word is dictating. The word is uniting, integrating. Integrating is the word. It takes a lot of avoided. It's what also connected to the previous Ma'ameh Chayesaro. We learned about, we begin as completely connected, and then we become separate, and then we need to reconnect, right? We spoke about interdependency. Essentially, in the Ein Sof, there's no Oisius. It's all one. And then the Oisius create diversity, and therefore can create fragmentation. And now Yaakov is going into Chara, and he's going to bring it back. Wow.
But actually, these two stoppers are actually almost.
Yeah, we spoke. So DNA is an amazing example for this because DNA is mamish like Isis. It's literally Isis. It's literally letters, and it's the chachma. It's literally the chachma of the entire system, every living organism, and it goes back to an intelligence. There's a chachma there, but then it becomes diversified. And how many types of combinations are there? And the sequence is everything. We share 99% of our DNA with a chimpanzee. And yet nobody looks in the mirror and says, hey, good morning, chimp. I mean, unless you're Charles Darwin.
No, but I see it by other people very clearly.
In other people, we see it. Over there, everybody is Charles Darwin, besides myself. Yeah. Yeah. But 99%, I think even more than 99%. So the question is, 99, so most of me should feel like a chimp. Why do I feel like a human being? But this shows you that one little tiny tziruv, that one little tiny configuration that sets apart human DNA from mammal DNA is everything. That's the imprint that makes you. So that tziruv is literally everything. And even between people. As much as we're connected, everybody feels different than everybody else. No two people ever felt the same about life, and they never will. Even twins, identical twins who grew up in the same placenta and fought over the same nutrients in mom's womb, everybody is different. They may seem identical, but we all know they're different on so many different levels. What is that? And their DNA is mamish identical. And yet there's still something, there's the signature of God. Thank you so much. Moshe, the signature of God, and that's you. And that signature you have to protect because it's Bishvili Nivra Olam. Okay. So that's step one, what Yaakov does. So he takes all the stones, he puts them mirashoisov, and that's when he goes to sleep. And Mamela, in the morning, we see them as one stone. What's why we see them as one stone? It's more than the physical miracle. It's the spiritual miracle. In many ways, that's bigger than the physical miracle, right? The stones, they got one, okay, they stopped fighting. The spiritual miracle, we know, is much deeper. When you can go into that state where those diverse stones in your internal space become one. In a marriage, this is the moment of a miracle. This is the moment of a miracle. When a husband and a wife stop thinking and experiencing life as me versus you. And that's a big one. And nobody can do that without safety. Because if I feel that if I let go and I become one with you, the next thing I have a stab, of course I'm going to sit in a bulletproof vest like this, like this, and you're not getting in. And I'll make compromises, but that's it. You understand, right? It's normal. If you're going to insult me, you're going to use my softness against me, I'm not going there. Right? This is what a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people struggle, and sometimes we go into so many defensive places. Everything is defensive now. Everything is defensive, and it's very hard. It's very hard. This is a very big challenge. Really letting go, because the anxiety wants to keep us locked up. I think everybody understands this, no? Huh? Unfortunately. It's survival mode, exactly. Survival mode. Yeah. The stones become daimim instead of... I hope you understand the paradox of avonim. That's the key word here. On one hand, the bricks channel the person. On the other hand, they're daimim. They're completely, infinitely remote from the person's consciousness. And that's exactly what our world is. On one hand, they become a home. Dira b'tachtoinu. It becomes a home for Ein Sof. Everything is infinity. You're in awe. You look at a tree and you see God talking through the tree. You look at a leaf, you look at a red bird in your backyard, or even a black bird or a gray bird, and you see Ein Sof, because it's all Isis conveying the author. Or all I could see is a dead daimim, a dead ice. What is an ice? It's dead, nothing. It's a dead world. You know, sometimes a person speaks and you hear the life behind it. It's like you come to life. And then it's just like dead words, heavy words. It's like heavy weight. They're just dead. They're like disconnected. They're not embodied. It's a dead universe. And it's not about the world, it's where you are. David HaMelech says, Naharai simchau chaf. He comes to the rivers and they're all clapping their hands. Really? You ever saw rivers clapping hands? Naharai simchau chaf. Really? Mechiat kapai. I never saw rivers clapping hands. He came to the river and the river was like, yay, David, you're amazing. Yachad harim yiranenu. The mountains are dancing. Yeah, you ever went to Utah, to the mountains, they were all dancing? I never saw... Very good. So the pshat is, the mountains are dancing. And if you don't see the mountains dancing, it's because you need Chiyas HaMesim. Start dancing, the mountains will dance. F in the Eigen, exactly. Nahare simcha uchaf, yachad harim yiranenu. So you could say it's just poetic language. Mountains don't dance and rivers don't clap hands. Huh? But they do, yeah. They may not clap hands, but they give quite a standing ovation. Go to the ocean, you'll see the oceans are Mikailos mayim rabim adirim mishbidei yam adim amarim Hashem. Yeah.
Very significant classifications, categories of life. There's like a domain.
Semeya chaim edaber. Of course. Of course. Yeah. The spectrum of consciousness is not simple at all. The Evan looks like daimim. On the other hand, here it unites. And that's exactly why Isis are called Avonim, because on one hand, the Isis are daimim, legabe Ein Sof. Now, how much of Ein Sof is conveyed in the reality of the universe? The answer is like daimim. It's physical, it's finite. You don't even feel there's an energy. Forget about Ein Sof and infinity. And that's one perception of the world, and I can get stuck in that perception. Or the ice opens up. And we see it also with letters. You could memorize Mishnayos Balpa. You could memorize words in French or in Russian that you don't understand. If you have a good memory, people do it all the time. They memorize davening, they memorize brachas. You could memorize Gemara, you could memorize Amayim, whatever you could memorize. And you know all the letters, you know all the words, and you don't understand nothing. So how much of the truth is in the letters? There's words in davening you say every day. Pinois tzvav kedoshim. Anybody knows what that means? Pinois tzvav kedoshim. You've heard of that, I'm sure, over 50 years. No. But okay, you look it up in the English Siddur today. I'm not going to spoil I don't want to spoil your tainug. No. I'm just giving an example. So how much of the truth of something is in the letters? If I could memorize a whole Masechta of Mishnayos, and I don't understand a word, literally. So I have everything, and yet I have nothing. But I have everything. It's like piano notes. You ever read? Somebody could memorize all but they don't know what it is. So they have nothing. So on one hand, Isis have nothing, literally nothing. You can memorize and say words and say more words and say more words. People read slichas. You ever see people read slichas? You know those piyutim? They read and they have a good niggin. They don't know a word they're saying. The Rosh Hashanah davening, the Yom Kippur davening, sometimes Shachris davening. I'm not saying in a judgmental way, I'm just saying because we're trained that way. You say it, you say it, you say it. So I'm saying all the words, everything is here, but I don't understand a word. Yeah. And it's nice Hebrew, it's beautiful, eloquent Hebrew, the kinnis of Tisha B'Av, eloquent. You read the Tanakh sometimes, it's unbelievably eloquent, and I have it, I'm reading it. And yet, you have literally nothing. So what is Isis? What is it? Does it have or does it not have? That's exactly the paradox of the universe. That's why it's such a beautiful example. You have everything the moment you could see in the letters what it contains. Or if not, I have nothing, I just have a letter. And that's exactly what the universe is. It's all Isis. So the Isis really contain everything. They're channeling everything. But they're channeling in a way that if you don't open yourself up to it, you have nothing. It's just letter. You have letters. The potential is there. But in reality, all I have is daimim. Literally daimim. And that's like, somebody who knows piano notes, suddenly they look at this sheet and they start smiling and they start humming. No. The other person, I don't know, what are you smiling? What are you smiling? Just a bunch of markers. Like, what are you smiling about? Why? Because this person didn't see in it notes. They saw music. The notes are the kalim for the music. It's not daimim. It's music. It's alive. It's not daimim anymore. It's Isis.
The letters are nothing.
It's the mindset. What? The music. Music notes. Because you see it, right? This person literally starts smiling, starts humming, sits down by the piano, and the person, what are you getting in the spal for? And this is literally how the world works. This is the Alter Rebbe's mashal here. That's the oimik of the mashal. It's animated, yeah. It's yeah. What do you say?
I'm saying it's not the letters, it's the mindset. Like Ron was saying, like you could have the daimim, like the rocks that ended up coming to life. Then you can have a medaber that could be not talking.
Of course,
down,
of course.
Not using it.
Right, right.
So
But you're right. But it's not right to say it's not the letters. It is the letters. It's the letters that are. If I understand the letters, if I know what mem aleph yud mem saf yud me'emasai says something.
Sometimes there's power in just reading the letters.
For sure.
Like saying Tillit.
For sure.
Not understanding it, you can get
Yeah.
even more.
Because there's an energy there. Because there is a real energy there. There's a real energy there. The Shalos says that sometimes a person is not in a state of expansiveness, and they should just say the names of the Masechtas. Brachas, Shabbos, Brachas, Peyed, Mai, Kelayim, Shviyas, Trumas. That's what he says. Even the names.
like somebody came to the other and said, you said buy some more svarim, but what if I'm not going to open them? He said, have them anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to open them, let alone
Yeah.
look at them. That I see
Yeah.
even just being there.
Yeah. Marabu Masecha Hashem, and then there's Kulam B'chachma Asisa. There's seeing the Chachma. So the letters themselves have it. That's the power of Isis HaTorah. They have Kedusha. It's real Kedusha. It's not a joke. It says in Torah Shebeksav, even Amaretz who doesn't understand, gets an Aliyah, makes a Brichas HaTorah. Afilu lo yadam. In Torah Shebal Peh, you're not Yotz if you don't understand. But in Torah Shebeksav, the letters themselves have a Kedusha. Bereishis Bar Elokim Es Hashemayim V'Saretz. Because they are conveying it. And yet in that itself, there's different levels, right? There's the Isis, the way they're more daimim. And then there's the way the Isis open up. They open you up. And that's the whole world. And b'meila. So you have here the two perceptions. Oh wow. My introductions and summaries have too many Isis. Huh? Yeah.
Doesn't need an introduction.
Huh?
Doesn't need
Needs an ending. What's the next thing that Yaakov does? He takes the stone. He already put it by his head. They became one. Now he wakes up in the morning. The Torah says that what does he do? Vayasem oisem atzeva. He turns the stone into like a monument. and he pours oil on it. What's the idea of this? So the Alter Rebbe now is mamshech. It's the second column of the Maimer. In the Hebrew, it's page 41. In the Hebrew, it's Chaf Aleph, column 2. In the English, it's 41, the second column. In the middle of the page, mamish, the line starts, Shebehem mislapshem b'chinas midas al yonis, like 18 lines from the bottom. V'zeu sheyakov osam mikol havonim even achas. You see? Shu ois hayud la loisan leb'chinas chachmei la. That sums it up. Yaakov took all the stones, and they, in his heart, in his mind, they became one, which is the letter Yud, raising them all to cosmic Chachmei La, this cosmic divine intelligence. And then he turns the Evan into a Matseva. An Evan itself is like a Yud, like a rock. And then he makes a Matseva. Matseva is like a tombstone, a monument that's like a Vav. Like when you have imagine a narrow rock that becomes like a tombstone, it looks like a Vav, extended downward. Sha'os avihim shech b'b'chinas Yud l'b'chinas Vav. Now he does something on a deeper inyan. You could take the world back to its source in your consciousness, and it becomes condensed like a yud. Can you now bring it back into the diversity? Can you bring that consciousness back into diversity? You could turn it all into a yud, which is a moment of like surrender. Everything becomes condensed, where you let go of the egoic mind, so everything converges into oneness. That's Yud, Chachmei La. Now he makes a Matseva, so from the Yud, he brings it downward into Vav, so the Chachmei La should be able to be manifested Lamata, down here. What do we mean down here? In a consciousness of diversity. That's what Lamata means. In Torah mitzvahs. Take a Vav, and take a look at the Vav. If you'll see, the top of the Vav is a Yud. And then the Yud just extends downward, 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 downward. So the Yud is bringing it all back to that seminal point, which is Chachmei La. And now the Vav is, you have that point, and you don't lose that point, but you bring it downward. So now it's an opposite motion. It's going downward. Torah comes from Chachmei La. It's essentially divine, cosmic, and divine intelligence. But it extends below in a consciousness where everything is physical. Once he makes a matzeva, he takes oil and he pours it on top of the stone. Oil represents in Kabbalah Chachmei La, like it says Shemen Mishchas Kodesh, the anointing oil of holiness, which is Kodesh, which is Chachma. Liyah, so why is he pouring oil on it? Liyah is Gili B'chinas Chachmei La, Mamish Lamatu B'chinas Matzeva. Now, once it becomes a Matzeva, he now wants to pour Chachma on it, that the Chachma should be revealed even in a state of Matzeva, meaning even in a state of Vav, which extends, Shob'chinas Torah, Mitzvah Shemal Abashim Lamatu B'dvarim Gashma, which is the way Torah Mitzvah is manifested down here in physicality. Hamachlif Pada B'chamar. He gives an example from all the examples of the whole Torah. He gives an example of a machlif para b'chamar. Chazal talk about someone exchanging a para for a chamar, an ox for a donkey, using this example as something that is as tedious and technical as anything else. It's basically a business transaction between a cow and a donkey. Or as you would say today, between two cars or two computers, two cars, I guess. A para b'chamar. Or kosher puzzle. You say this is kosher, this is puzzle. This is a kosher sukkah, this is a disqualified sukkah. This is kosher at tzitzis, this is a puzzle at tzitzis. This is a kosher at sefer Torah, kosher at tefillin, puzzle at tefillin. Yeah. This is a kosher bris, this is a not kosher bris. In other words, and you're always dealing with the wall is too high, the wall is too low, the erev is cut, the stick is not long enough, it doesn't connect. So l'chayr, it's all very physical things. Im kol zeh yibem gili b'chinas chachmei la mamish k'may shol amayla. Pouring the oil on this stone, which became a matzeva, is that there should be able to be the consciousness. The gilui is the consciousness. Gilui means revelation. The embodied consciousness of Chachmei, of the divine intelligence, mamish, down here, the way it is in a higher state of consciousness of Yud. The Gemara says in Brachas, I think of Chav Beis, Ma'ala halan beimo b'yira, but as a beziyah, afkan beimo b'yira. That just like by Matan Torah, they receive the Torah with awe and reverence, and with complete surrender and zeya, sweat, vayaram, vayanu, afkan. Also now when you learn it should be the same way. Pirush, Ma lahalam b'shas matan Torah al Har Sinai. Shahayu be'emo b'yira, just like by Har Sinai there was an awe. Why? Sha'az hayag b'chinas gili b'tachlis, because everything was revealed. It was the ultimate revelation. Sheshamu mipi atzmus hamatzil anochi Hashem Elokecha. Right? It's even hard for us to appreciate what this means. What does it look like? All ego was shattered completely. What does it look like when you experience in your bones the presence of atzmus hamatzil? Right, the core of the author of everything, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and suddenly it fills your system. Just think, but that's what happened by Matan Torah. Of course they didn't live. Parchen Ishmasen. Parchen Ishmasen means the ego left, the ego expired, it's done. Checkmate. Checkmate on the ego, you're done. Your king is just surrender, it's all over. Anochi Hashem, of course you're in awe. It wasn't awe out of fear, what are you going to do to me? It's just awe that there's no ego, you're completely surrendered. You're completely in a different state. You're subsumed in infinity. You're literally subsumed in infinity. What happens when you experience the experience? Anybody begins to relate to what this is? This is like real. This is like the experience of this. This is what happened by Matan Torah. There was a gili of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Before that, the curtains were down, and after that, the curtains came down again, and then back to the chess game. My Kool-Aid, your Kool-Aid, my bank, your bank, by the curtains are down. But at that moment, the curtains were up. You felt, what does it mean if they saw God? How do you see God? Somebody once asked me if there was a video, if somebody took a video of Matan Torah, what would show up? Huh? Yeah, I think a tissue box. I don't think the video would detect it. It was an internal experience. In other words, it was real. It was real. It's the internal state. It's not whatever you're looking at. It's the reality. The moment you see Anochi Hashem Elokecha, everything is different. It's not like it was fanfare drama. God did fireworks. Like, oh wow, God, you're a real magician. You're much better than Uncle Moshe and all the puppet shows for Lag Baimer. That's just our own, little immature understanding of religion. God is there, and suddenly I'll show you a good show. You'll freak out. I'll say, Mamish, you're going to die from fear. You think you saw firecrackers on July 4th? We'll show you a bunch of firecrackers. Kailos Abrakim. It's a whole different vart. It's an internal space where you experience the world as infinity. Gilui atzmus hamatzil of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Of course, it's the ultimate bliss. It's infinite bliss. So you say, what happens? But usually the curtain is down. Everything is through the Isis. So comes the Gemara and says, Ma lahalan, just like then it was that way. Afkan should also be that way. What's pshat? How can that be? The Chiddush is Af, Kamay Shatayim al-Bashas Lamatim Midvarim Gashim Yadei Gili Yiyal Yadei Gili Chachmei La Mamish Kamay Shaya Az Kamay Shakasav Vasim Dvarei Beficha. That's the whole part. That even the way the Torah comes down into physical reality. So l'chayri, you're talking about technicalities. It should still channel for you this chachmei la, mamish like then. V'asim dvarei beficha. My words are coming through your mouth, so you become a channel. So this is a hafla de kavod Alter Rebbe is saying here. That when the Gemara says it should be by Matan, when you're learning, it should be like by Matan Torah. It's not stam. You should. It's really opening yourself up to the possibility of the experience. The possibility, it is the same. Ultimately you will. Ultimately you will. Yeah. It's not you should, like guilting you into it. I'm not. He's explained to you what the real reality is. The real reality is that there is a moment of Chachmei Lo where it's stripped from any physical incarnation. It's Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The real Chiddush though is Mala Halan Afkan, that even though now I'm learning a piece of Gemara, I'm learning Chumash, I'm learning about a Parah Nachamai. But really, what is it? It's Chachmei Lo. It's really the infinite intelligence of the divine relating to the physical reality. So essentially at that moment, what the person is capable, if they were tuning into the frequency, your words are just channeling the divine and there's no separateness whatsoever. Even though you're talking about something physical, but it's the Yud becoming the Vav, which is the oil being poured on the stone, and therefore you can go into the same frequency of oneness. And therefore there's an awe. Now we know that not everybody always learning does this. Nobody's going to say I'm having Matan Torah, but Alter Rebbe is going to, why Chazal talk about this? Because this is really the potential. This is the energy that is embedded in it. This is the possibility of it. You could try it. It's not delusional. It's not talking about hallucinations here. The opposite. It's not about the drama of it. Like I'm on a high, I'm in ecstasy, I'm hallucinating, I'm dreaming, I'm having fantasies. It's Matan Torah now, I see fireworks. It's the exact opposite. The whole point here is, no, it's Gashmias. It's a very, very mundane moment. It's my body, using my lips, using my brain, grounded in a very physical world, learning Torah. And that's the Vart. But that itself is infinity. Right? That's the... Infinity doesn't just mean when I surrender everything and I'm out of this world. That's the Yud. But actually, it's bringing it down into this reality. I can open myself up to that vibe, so to speak, because that's a real vibe. Chachmei could be channeled through me relating to this physical thing. And that's the most healing experience of unity. That's the most internal healing experience. Because you're here, but you're mamash in Gan Eden. That's why there's such simcha over there. There's such a deep bliss. You're not abandoned, and you're a complete channel. And it's like ego death. You're in your ego, and you still have ego death. And it's not because all the curtains were open and we were taken into a different world where there's no physicality. Or there is physicality, but you just see the Ein Sof. It's on the contrary. It's grounded in that person. You realize that your words really, and therefore my oisius are just his oisius. It's coming through my mouth. Vayihi kenagin hamanagin, like we always talk about.
Why it has to be an ego death? Why can't it be a soul rebirth? Why it has to die? I mean, ego is
You never like when I use the words ego death. Which part of you doesn't like the words ego death? I want to know.
I think healthy ego is also death.
Because you were hurt by it. I understand.
It's not because I was hurt by it. Maybe I was.
You were. It's fine. We were all. Ego death is a glorious word. Ego death is not the death of yourself. It's the death of your prison. It's your prison cell. You want to get rid of it. Imagine somebody puts me into a prison cell, locks the door, and says, here you are. And then somebody says, you know what? I'm going to destroy the gates. That's what ego death means, destroy the gates. It's destroying the prison cell. You should hear the words, Mechaya. If I'm living under a rock and somebody takes away the rock. Ego death is not death of self. Ego death is death of my death trap, of my prison cell, of the chains. It's actually exposure, yeah.
You said last year ego death is anivas, and anivas is simcha.
Anivas is simcha, yeah.
That's what ego death is.
Ego death means the sense of self that is insecure. The sense of self that has to be terrified, that is always in negative competitiveness. I always have to prove myself or flatter you or impress you or get your validation or overwhelm you. It's always the zero-sum game, easing God out. Make sense or no? Of course, if somebody takes ego death, but I'm talking in the nervous system. So speak to your nervous system. It's very important. But I'm not invested in those words, ego death. It's not the word ego death. It's bittul, whatever you want to call it. It's the idea of letting go of the undoing of the rock that I have to live under, and I feel I'm always living under.
It's the exact same peanut and Jacobson. The second the ego dies is when the soul wakes up. So it's literally the exact. But we need to. But we're going forward into it.
Exploration.
You're going forward into it. So the moment the ego dies, in that moment is when the soul begins to wake up. So it's the exact same thing. You're just talking about the entrance, and you're talking about the other side of it. But it's both. It's the same thing. It's literally the same moment, the same.
Yeah.
The same.
And I can relate to soul rebirth, but ego death is very
It's glorious. It's really glorious because, like you said, it's literally the moment that the soul is reborn. Like a Tchias HaMesim, it's resurrection of the dead. It's like, wow, it's a new self. It's like a Panam Chadashas. It's literally like a, a few weeks ago we spoke about the concept. Imagine I'm a chick living in an egg my entire life. And I came up with a philosophy that the only reality is this egg. There's no other reality. and I build castles in the egg, and I make money in the egg, and I get validation in the egg. And I look around the egg, and I'm trying to impress all the parts of the egg to be able to say what a good guy I am. And I literally live there, and there's nothing else, and I invest my entire energy in that egg. And then one day, all the baskets in one egg, pun intended, literally, and I live there. And my fighting is there, my love is there, my romance is there, my ecstasy is there, my spirituality is there, my religion, my God, everything is in that egg. Even God is on top of the egg, but he's in the egg. But everything is in the egg. My marriage is in the egg, my kids are in the egg, parnas, everything. Huh? Yeah. Makif, Saiviv Kalalman, the egg, the membrane of the egg is Saiviv Kalalman, the little chick is Mamala Kalalman, everything is there. And then literally the egg cracks. And I look and I go, you're destroying my world, you lowlife Ganav Reitzeach Gazlan. So now I dedicate the rest of my time to kill the person who managed to crack that egg. And what am I really killing? I'm killing my redemption. I'm killing my Mashiach. I'm killing the one who wanted to do the biggest favor to the chick. Crack open the ego and set yourself free. Now what if I tell you that literally, this is really what the Alter Rebbe is saying. I could live my entire life in that egg and really taking it seriously. And it's not my fault. I don't know of anything else.
He's saying that is also part of it.
Of course, it's also part of it. And one day I'll be able to understand why that is true. But imagine I stay there without any inkling of anything else. And when people hear this metaphor, they think that, and I'm talking to myself also, we think we get it because it's a cute metaphor. But what if experientially, that's what I have found in my own life, and I think maybe some people can relate to this. Experientially, the biggest tragedy is we don't get this. We don't get it. It's a metaphor. Yeah, it's cute. I'm in an egg because I'm petty, or I get selfish, or I get angry. So I'm going to try not to get angry the next time my child or my wife says something. That's also in the egg. So what does it actually look like to be able to experience yourself as infinity? Rabbi, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Huh? Sunny side up. Very good. Very good.
I understand a little bit more why I have such a problem with the ego.
Yeah.
Because probably.
By the way, egg is Miloshin ego. So ego death is the egg death. Cracking the egg is the ego death. And even if you want to eat, for heaven's sake, an omelet, you got to crack the egg. The ego is not even good to make an omelet. If you keep the ego there, even an egg, you can't have a normal egg. Even for that, you have to crack the egg. Kol shekain to go a little more than eating an omelet.
But I think my internal conflicts come from a place where in the eighth Chaim, probably there is not even the word death. So I was thinking that how you would describe ego death from the eighth Chaim.
Beautiful question. So the truth is, we don't need the word ego death. I use the word ego death because it's not really ego death. It's really sublimation of everything. It's sublimation of the ego. Yes. But for some of us who need a little bit of the shock to be able to wake up the system, so I think it's a useful word. But it's not a holy, sacred term that we have to hallow and sanctify.
The word death
I hear.
creeps me out,
I hear.
even if it comes to the ego.
Yeah, it conjures, I understand, it conjures self-denigration and abusive things. I understand.
Let's make one comment on this. So,
And remember, somebody who talks about ego death and they have a little bit of an ego, be careful. You understand? Because we're going to make everybody have an ego death so that my ego will be able to feel very good today about how many egos I managed to kill. So my ego can have another good day in the egg. So that's where everybody has to be careful. Myself included, of course. It's a big trap. Everything could be a trap. Sometimes the biggest trap is bashing the ego. Huh? especially other egos, and you came to the place of enlightenment, and let me teach you what it is not to have an ego, and look at me. Yeah. So that's why that's where the authenticity of it is always the critical thing. The moment you go out of the place, like we said in the last mime, if when bittul is not experienced with bittul, it's very dangerous. Bittul also has to be bittul. It could be like everything. There's a thin wall between abuse and bittul, between stupidity and bittul, between laziness, depression, giving up, despair, and real bittul. It's just a thin.
Stupidity actually has something to do with people, because that's the only infinite thing in the world.
I think Einstein said, right, two things are infinite: the universe and stupidity, and the latter is more infinite. Yeah. So in real experience, this is like very, very real. It's real. Real means that we have to appreciate the fact that sometimes I could be so blocked emotionally my entire life that I could learn this for 50 years, learn all the words, hear the most beautiful, eloquent metaphors, even share it with others. For many years in my own history, I grew up with this type of learning. I grew up with this. The place where I grew up, this was like part of the bread and meat and potato. But for so many years, I didn't appreciate it on an embodied level. It was beautiful things. It's inspiring. It's nice. It's geschmack. It's geschmack to give it over to others. It's even geschmack to tell it to myself. And it's also helpful in many ways because it's a blueprint for how to live. But what I learned is, in my own life, that as long as I cannot feel it in my actual body, in my nefesh habahamis, not my nefesh elikis. Nefesh elikis knows this. The nefesh elikis knows this. But the nefesh habahamis doesn't know. Nefesh habahamis is a chick in an egg, literally. That's what it does. And it's trying hard. It's not a bad thing. It's just it's a little chick trying to live. And therefore it's not going to get it. It really will not get it. And all the explanations in the world will not compensate for this because it's not about explanations. It's literally the experience of it inside the body and the nervous system, which is all the nefesh habahamis. That's not the nefesh elikis. Nefesh elikis is not your nervous. The nervous system is the nefesh habahamis. Nefesh habasar bedami. It's the blood. It's the biological system. And that's literally an experience inside. Until I do not have that, it's nice words, it's beautiful, it's helpful, it's meaningful, it helps us make the right decisions. It's true. But the experience of it is completely lacking, and I didn't even know what I was talking about. I knew maybe intellectually a little bit, but in terms of das, intimacy, va'adam yada es chava. Adam didn't only know chava as a resume, AI. It was AI, literally everything could be AI. Beautiful AI messages. But it's literally inside the egg. And then everything is ultimately torturous. It is torturous. It's like you should, and you could, and you should, and you should more, and you should more, and you should more. But it's like it's ultimately miserable at the core. And the reason it's miserable at the core is because we could so be easily disconnected. And cracking of the egg is literally the experiential being in a flow where you just know you touch something. And yes, there'll still be voices that say you're just fantasizing, you're just trying to make believe your life is good, you're a sick person, you're supposed to be miserable, you're born miserable, you die miserable, okay. And that's part of dealing with our nefesh habahamis. But it's a real, you touch authenticity and it's just authentic. I mean, part of the nefesh habahamis is also to deny anything that's authentic. So that's also part of the avodah, Like right now, there's a voice inside of me and like telling me, stop selling the Brooklyn Bridge. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, you think anybody knows what you're talking about? Whatever, all these things, it's all part of the survival instincts. What I want to bring out here is, what Alter Rebbe is saying is that the real chiddush of what Yaakov is doing is, you can go back to Yud, and you have to go back to Yud, because without that, I just remain stuck in my egg. The real challenge is now the Yud should go into the Vav, come down, pour oil on it, which is not the Matan Torah, Malahalan, it's Afkan. Afkan be'emo b'yida b'reses ha'beziyah. That right here, present, in this moment, wherever I am, in the middle of the day, it could be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're sitting at your desk, and that moment is a Matan Torah moment. And that's the biggest revolution. Afkan be'emo b'yida b'reses ha'beziyah. How? How can it be? Because the physicality could become a channel for Chachmei Allah, literally. So I could be learning about a para and a chamor. I'm learning a Mishnah, I'm learning a Gemara, I'm learning a Halach and Shulchan Aruch, I'm learning a Maimah, whatever it is, I'm learning in Torah, Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebal Peh. And literally, it's channeling Chachmei Lo. It's Chachmei Lo. It's the Yud coming in to this technical, detailed element. And if I open myself up to the full energy that's there, it's a moment of Matan Torah. Even though there's no physical fireworks. But it's much deeper than fireworks, because it's coherence. It's real coherence. Fireworks is dramatic. This is not dramatic, it's coherence. It's real coherence. And the truest moments don't have to be dramatic. We look for drama as a distraction. Drama is a need. When you have coherence, you don't need drama. It's the greatest drama you'll ever have. You know what I mean? Yeah, the most still moments will be the most dramatic moments. All drama will not, you understand, Rabbi Isaac? All drama will not substitute the moment of coherence. Drama is sometimes nice. I'm not knocking drama. I could be dramatic myself. But I'm not going to be knocking drama at the moment. But nothing compares to coherence. It's like a silence. Kol d'mama daka. Kol d'mama daka. Because the coherence is everything. That's the ultimate drama. Very often drama is just another escape. It's a beautiful escape. So it's more dramatic. It's less dramatic. Drama, 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 drama. It's really pain. Drama is an escape from pain in drama. It's like another beautiful distraction with other billion distractions that we have in our world. And the moment you crack the egg and suddenly you see sunlight, wow, I didn't even know what I was missing. The Rebbe used to say that you can't understand Geula if you never experienced what Golus is. You cannot understand what Geula is if you never experience what Golus is. You understand? That's very, very important. The worst enemy to Geula is not Golus. It's that Golus becomes Geula. Right? The worst thing, a lot of people don't like that I use the word trauma in my classes. I get a lot of flack about it. Not you and not him. But I get it's interesting how much flack I get for using that word not so infrequently. People don't like it. Yeah. So I'm not going to, just like ego death is not a holy word, trauma is also not a holy word. Right? But what's interesting is why people get upset that the word is used. Trauma is not, they don't like to hear that it's traumatic for them. Because they don't. So I want to explain. And I don't mean, trauma is not a holy word, it's not one of the Aseres HaDibros, and ego death is not one of the Aseres HaDibros. But the real issue that people don't understand, and I also didn't understand it for many years, I'm not even blaming anybody, is that the depth of trauma is not the word trauma. The depth of trauma is that I could live my entire life literally in an egg. And the egg is reality. And it's not even my choice. It's really not my choice. And I try so hard. And yet, I can't liberate myself from it, not because I don't want to, because this is reality, and my entire God and love and everything goes into this reality, and this is where it lives. And I don't even know what it looks like afterwards. And then if you're lucky, God cracks your egg, and what you think is the curse of your life was really the greatest blessing of your life. Because it literally, for the first time, you became a sunny side up, to steal Nehemiah's brilliant metaphor.
And if he doesn't open himself up, he's going to be a boiled egg. Somebody's going to
Yes. And then I have Bechira. Till then I didn't have Bechira. Till then I didn't even have Bechira. There was no agency. I was literally a trapped soul doing the best I can. And I have to have compassion. You have to have compassion. And this is not a philosophical truth. This is not philosophy. This is not scholarship. We're not talking about that. Scholarship is nice, philosophy is nice, history is nice, insights are nice. This is not a vart on the parsha, and it's not a Chassam Sofer. Your typhus the Inyan Abyssal. Huh? Okay. We'll take a break here, and Be'ezer Hashem, we will continue Thursday morning. Everybody have a beautiful day and a beautiful week. Try to chaza the maimer. Try to chaza the maimer. Yes. Oh, no. Sorry.